Imagine this. You're driving home after a long day. The traffic is relentless. You're exhausted, running late, and just when you think it can't get worse, someone cuts you off without signaling. Your chest tightens, your hands grip the wheel. Your first instinct? To lash out, honk, curse, react. But in that fleeting moment, there's another option. You could pause, breathe, choose. That space between what happens to you and how you respond is where the Stoics built their strength. It's in that space we discover who we really are. The ancient Stoics lived in a world not so different from ours. They too faced stress, insult, betrayal, and grief. But rather than let the world dictate their emotions, they cultivated an inner fortress, a place of stillness, choice, and alignment. To them, freedom wasn't found in changing the world. It was found in mastering their response to it. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." He wasn't dismissing pain. He was pointing out how often we let our unchecked reactions turn discomfort into suffering. The real damage isn't always in the event. It's in how we interpret it, how we allow it to pull us away from our center. And so the question becomes, when the storm hits, do you get swept away, or do you become the calm eye at its center? This isn't about being passive, it's about being deliberate. Every day gives us practice, a rude comment, a delay, an unexpected challenge. Each one is an invitation. Will we react, or will we respond? Start by noticing your body. When tension rises, where do you feel it? Your shoulders, your jaw, your breath? Then before doing anything, pause. Even a second is enough. That pause is power. That pause breaks the chain. That pause is where freedom begins. And in that pause, you ask yourself, what would strength do? What would wisdom choose? What kind of person do I want to be in this moment? The Stoics didn't teach us to suppress emotion. They taught us to honor it, then rise above it, to feel but not be ruled, to experience but not be owned. So the next time you find yourself on the edge about to snap, shout, or shut down, remember, you have a choice. That choice is the foundation of inner peace, of resilience, of quiet strength. And every time you choose response over reaction, you're not just avoiding regret. You're becoming someone new, someone grounded, present, and aligned, someone free. Man is not worried by real problems so much as by his imagined anxieties about real problems. Epictetus. Let's look closer. There's a moment in every conflict, every emotionally charged encounter, where time seems to blur. Words are said, voices rise. You feel attacked, misunderstood, maybe even betrayed. In that moment, your mind races to defend, to retaliate, to protect your pride. But this is the battleground the Stoics knew well. They didn't deny that emotions arise. They simply questioned whether every emotion deserved their obedience. Imagine a heated meeting at work. A colleague criticizes your idea in front of everyone. You feel the flush of embarrassment, the sting of judgment, the desire to snap back to prove your worth. But the Stoics would ask, what is truly under your control right now? Not their words, not their tone, only your response. And in that realization, you reclaim your power. This is where the practice of pausing becomes more than a technique. It becomes a way of living. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor with unimaginable pressure on his shoulders, would retreat into silence before making decisions. Not because he was unsure, but because he refused to let impulse govern his rule. He wrote in his journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That strength, it's not loud, it's not showy, it's the quiet kind that keeps your dignity intact while others lose theirs. To build this strength, start simple. The next time someone interrupts you, don't immediately speak. When you receive a harsh message, don't instantly reply. Breathe, let the heat rise, then cool. In that space, you can examine what's truly bothering you. Is it the words, or is it the way they made you feel about yourself? Is your reaction about this moment, or echoes of something older? Self-awareness is not just seeing your thoughts. It's understanding where they come from and whether they serve the person you want to be. Each time you pause, each time you examine before acting, you're not being weak. You're building inner control. The kind of control that makes you unshakable, not cold, not numb, but steady. With practice, This pause becomes a habit. That habit becomes character, and your character, that's what defines the course of your life. You're no longer a prisoner of your reactions. You become the author of your responses. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Let's go deeper. There's a difference between reacting and responding that goes beyond behavior. It's a difference in identity, in who you are choosing to become. Most people live on autopilot. A comment annoys them and they snap. A plan fails and they collapse. They move through life being pushed and pulled by every mood, every insult, every twist of fortune. But you're learning to live awake, to notice the space between trigger and action, to step into it with clarity. The Stoics were not emotionless statues. They were warriors of the mind, training every day not to eliminate emotion, but to befriend it, understand it, and then rise above its control. Take the idea of reframing, one of the most powerful tools in both Stoic thought and modern psychology. Reframing means choosing a different story about what's happening. Not to lie to yourself, but to free yourself. Let's say you lose an opportunity you deeply wanted, a job, a relationship, a goal. Your first instinct might be to see it as rejection, a closed door, a failure. But pause. What else could it mean? Maybe it's protection. Maybe it's redirection. Maybe it's the start of something you can't yet see. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." He wasn't being poetic. He was giving you a tool, a sword to cut through despair. You get to choose the frame, and the frame determines the meaning, and meaning that shapes everything. So when life stings, ask, what is this teaching me? Where is the growth hidden in this pain? How can I turn this obstacle into strength? This shift in perspective doesn't just calm your emotions. It builds your courage. It transforms setbacks into stepping stones. And over time, you stop fearing the storm because you've learned how to steer your ship. That's the essence of Stoicism, not cold detachment, but fearless engagement. A willingness to meet life as it is without flinching and still choose your highest self. So the next time life doesn't go your way, don't ask why me. Ask what now? Then move, not with haste, not with rage, but with intention. That's how you become resilient, not by avoiding life's blows, but by learning to absorb them and still stand tall. Self-control is strength. Calmness is mastery. You have to get to a point where your mood doesn't shift based on the insignificant actions of someone else. Morgan Freeman. There's a quiet dignity in restraint, not the kind that suppresses emotion, but the kind that transforms it. The kind that sees the flame of anger rise and chooses not to throw gasoline. In today's world, people mistake loudness for power, reactivity for authenticity, as if being unfiltered means being honest, as if saying the first thing that comes to mind is a mark of strength. But the Stoics knew better. True strength is choosing your words. True freedom is choosing when or whether to speak at all. Imagine this. You receive a message that frustrates you. Maybe it's disrespectful. Maybe it cuts deeper than the sender knows. Your fingers hover over your phone, ready to fire back a reply. Now, freeze that moment. This is your training ground, not in theory, not in ancient texts, but right here in the heat of the now. Breathe. Ask yourself, what do I want to create with my response? Do I want revenge or resolution? Do I want to escalate or elevate? This is what the Stoics practice daily. The art of asking better questions before acting. The art of choosing peace without weakness. The art of walking away, not because you're afraid, but because you've outgrown the need to prove yourself. Marcus Aurelius, in the middle of war, wrote to himself, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Think about that. The highest response to disrespect is self-respect. The highest response to provocation is presence. This doesn't mean you let people walk over you. Stoicism isn't passive, it's powerful. But it chooses where to spend that power, and it never wastes it on battles unworthy of the soul. So how do you build this kind of response in real life? Start with your mornings. Before the world gets loud, get still. Reflect, journal. Set your intention not just for what you want to achieve, but for who you want to be when things don't go as planned. Throughout the day, return to that presence. When someone disappoints you, remember, you've been that person too. When someone offends you, pause and remember that offense is a choice. When life tests you, ask, what does my highest self do now? Every pause becomes a declaration, a stand for your values, a refusal to be ruled by chaos. And as you build this habit, something changes. You begin to carry peace like armor. You begin to walk with a quiet power that no one gave you and no one can take away. Discipline equals freedom. Jocko Willink. Most people think freedom means doing whatever you want, saying whatever you feel, acting on impulse. But ask anyone who's lived that way. It's not freedom, it's chaos. True freedom comes from discipline, from knowing that you don't have to follow every urge, that you can want something and still say no, that you can feel anger and still choose grace. That's what the Stoics understood better than most. That the person most in control is not the loudest in the room. It's the one who can sit in silence, feel everything, and still respond with clarity. Discipline doesn't start with huge decisions. It begins with small ones, like the choice to wake up when you said you would, to say no to distractions when focus is needed, to pause, especially when it's hard. Imagine a conversation spiraling out of control. Voices rise, accusations fly. You feel the heat crawling up your spine, but you've practiced this. Instead of matching their energy, you lower yours. Instead of attacking, you ask questions. Instead of storming out, you lean in with curiosity, not contempt. That's not weakness, that's power. That's the kind of control that turns a moment of conflict into a moment of leadership. It diffuses tension. It preserves relationships. It keeps your integrity intact. The Stoics didn't wait for peace to appear. They brought it with them. They cultivated habits that built mental armor, morning reflections, evening self-examinations, tiny rituals of mindfulness that kept their inner world steady, no matter how wild the outer world became. And you can do the same. Start by identifying your triggers. What words set you off? What patterns of behavior throw you off balance? Don't judge them, just observe. Then plan your responses ahead of time, not to script your life, but to strengthen your choices. Like a musician rehearsing notes so that when the moment comes, their hands already know the way. Each time you respond with discipline, you rewrite your story. You're no longer a character reacting to every plot twist. You're the author, deliberate, composed, aligned. And in that alignment, something beautiful happens. Your actions start reflecting your values. Your choices begin to echo your purpose. You stop being pulled in every direction and start walking a path that's truly yours. That's freedom. Not the freedom of chaos, but the freedom of inner command. The unexamined life is not worth living. Socrates. But the unexamined moment, that's where most people lose themselves. They go through the day reacting, one email to the next, one conversation to the next. They never pause to ask, did I live today in alignment with who I want to be? That's where the Stoics were different. They built a rhythm of reflection into their lives, not as punishment, but as guidance. Every evening they looked back, not to shame themselves, but to sharpen themselves. What did I do well today? What moments did I let anger, ego, or fear take the lead? What could I do better tomorrow? Simple questions, quiet answers, but over time, transformation. Because awareness is a mirror, it shows you what you're becoming. And if you don't like the reflection, it gives you the chance to change. You don't need a retreat. You don't need perfect conditions. You need 5 minutes, a pen, and the courage to be honest. That's where the real work begins. The Stoics knew this. Change doesn't come from ambition alone. It comes from consistency, from rituals, from the practice of showing up every day, especially when no one is watching. So build your own reflection ritual. At the end of the day, ask, when was I proud of how I responded? When did I fall back into reactivity? What triggered me? And what does that reveal about my inner work? What virtue do I want to carry into tomorrow? Don't aim for perfection. Aim for clarity. With clarity comes direction. With direction comes peace. And over time, you'll notice something shift. You'll stop being surprised by your own reactions. You'll start recognizing patterns before they spiral. You'll walk into challenges already equipped with self-awareness, discipline, and the presence of mind to choose wisely. This isn't about becoming flawless. It's about becoming faithful to your values, to your growth, to the version of yourself you're patiently building. And that's the quiet beauty of Stoicism. It meets you where you are. Then gently, steadily, it asks more of you, not loudly, but with a calm that echoes in your decisions, your habits, your presence. That's how character is shaped, not in moments of glory, but in moments of reflection. And with each one, you're not just reacting to life, you're leading it. First, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do, Epictetus. This is where it all comes together. The discipline, the pause, the reframing, the reflection. Each practice on its own is powerful, but together they form something greater, a way of being. A life led not by noise, but by values. Not by pressure, but by presence. In the modern world, it's easy to feel pulled in every direction. There are opinions to answer, expectations to meet, battles to fight. But the Stoic path doesn't ask you to abandon life. It asks you to enter it with intention. To wake up each day and ask, what kind of person do I want to be, no matter what happens? Because storms will come, people will misunderstand you, plans will break, emotions will rise. But your anchor, your response is yours alone. And the more you practice, the more instinctive it becomes. Where once there was reactivity, now there is space. Where once there was resentment, now there is clarity. Where once there was noise, now there is a quiet strength. This kind of life, grounded, deliberate, free, isn't built overnight. It's shaped over time with patience, failure, and persistence. But every moment offers a fresh chance to return, to choose presence over impulse, alignment over approval, response over reaction. And when you live this way, others feel it. They may not understand it at first, but they'll sense the peace in your silence, the purpose in your restraint, the calm in your decisions. You won't need to explain yourself. Your actions will speak. That's the kind of influence that doesn't need volume. It speaks through presence. And that's the gift of Stoicism. Not just a philosophy, but a compass. One that points you back to who you truly are, again and again. So as you move forward, carry this with you. Every challenge is a test of your alignment. Every irritation is a call to remember your training. Every moment, ordinary or profound, is a chance to live as the person you've decided to become. This is the journey. Not easy, but worth it. And as you walk it, you won't just change how you respond to life. You'll quietly, steadily change your life itself. There is a silent transformation happening within you every time you choose awareness over impulse. By now, you've begun to see the Stoic path isn't about perfection. It's about practice, not about suppressing who you are, but revealing who you were always capable of becoming. And this practice, it compounds. Each time you respond instead of react, you strengthen your character. Each time you pause before speaking, you preserve your integrity. Each time you reflect, you refine your direction. And over days, weeks, months, you begin to feel it. The emotional reactivity that once owned you, it loosens its grip. You no longer flinch at discomfort, no longer spiral in uncertainty, no longer lose yourself in someone else's chaos. Instead, you begin to lead, not others, but yourself. That's the quiet revolution Stoicism brings. Not loud declarations of strength, but soft decisions made again and again in the privacy of your own mind. It's in the way you sit with pain without rushing to numb it, the way you hear criticism and mine it for wisdom instead of offense, the way you face uncertainty and say, even here, I will remain steady. And the truth is, the world needs more of this now than ever. Not more outrage, not more noise, but more people who walk into every room with presence. People who speak not to dominate, but to understand. People who lead not with control, but with clarity. People whose strength comes not from how loud they are, but how aligned they are. You have the capacity to be that person. Not because you've never been reactive, but because you've chosen to grow beyond it. Not because you're immune to emotion, but because you've trained yourself to respond with reason and grace. And in doing so, you're not just practicing Stoicism, you're embodying it. You're becoming someone whose life, in every word, gesture, and silence, reflects wisdom. And that kind of life, that kind of presence, it changes everything. It brings peace where there was conflict, stability where there was chaos, purpose where there was noise. So the next time the world pushes, pause. The next time emotion surges, breathe. The next time life surprises, respond. And with every choice, let your quiet strength speak for you. That's the real power. That's the Stoic way. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. And so we arrive at the heart of it. All the reflection, all the restraint, all the deliberate choices, they lead here. To the person you are when no one is watching. To the moments no one else will ever see, but you will remember. Because Stoicism isn't about appearing wise. It's about being wise. When it's hard, when it's lonely, when it costs you comfort, approval, or control. It's about showing up with integrity, even when there's no applause. And you know what? That's where the real transformation happens. When your response becomes a reflection of your values, not your moods. When you stop needing the world to be calm for you to be calm. When you no longer chase validation because you've anchored in something deeper, self-respect. This is the quiet power that the Stoics cultivated. Not through grand gestures, but through small, consistent choices. Choosing to listen instead of speak. Choosing to walk away instead of escalate. Choosing to let go instead of cling. Choosing to live today aligned, not tomorrow, not someday, but now. The truth is, most people won't notice your growth at first. They won't understand why you don't lash out anymore, why you don't gossip, why you carry yourself with peace when the world's on fire. But over time, they will. They'll feel something different around you. Not fear, not force, presence. And that presence will do more than words ever could. It will invite others to rise, to reflect, to respond with intention too. That's how change spreads. Not through argument, through embodiment. And this is the life you're building, one response at a time. It won't always be easy. You'll slip, you'll react, you'll forget, but then you'll remember and return, again and again, until the day comes when responding with grace is no longer an effort. It's simply who you are. Not perfect, but practiced. Not untouched by life, but untouched by what doesn't matter. And that is the gift of this path. To become someone the world cannot shake. Because your peace doesn't come from them. It comes from you, from within, where the real power has always been. Every moment is a fresh beginning. T.S. Eliot. And that's the beauty of this journey. It never ends, but it always begins again. Each morning you rise is another chance to practice. Another moment to choose the higher path. Another invitation to respond, not just to life's challenges, but to life itself, to the ordinary, to the quiet, to the unseen. Because Stoicism isn't reserved for crisis. It's practiced in the way you greet your loved ones, even on tired days. In how you carry yourself through silence. In how you treat the barista, the colleague, the stranger on the train. It's lived in the pause between your thoughts, the restraint in your fingertips, the breath before your words. And slowly, almost invisibly, your life begins to take shape. Not from ambition alone, but from alignment. Not from control, but from presence. Not from perfection, but from devotion to something deeper. A life lived on purpose. So what now? Maybe you close this chapter feeling clearer. Maybe you feel called to start, to try again, to keep going. Wherever you are, that's the place to begin. Start small, one breath, one pause, one moment of clarity in the chaos, and let that become your practice. Let your life, quietly, steadily, reflect the person you are choosing to become. Not because it's easy, but because it's right. Not for recognition, but for peace. Not to impress, but to live in truth. You've heard the words. You felt their weight. You know the path. Now walk it. Not perfectly, but fully, with presence, with grace, with quiet strength. And as you do know this, you're not walking alone. You walk alongside those who've come before you, the Stoics, the seekers, the ones who chose response over reaction, presence over pressure, alignment over approval. You walk with them, and step by step, choice by choice, you become one of them. Someone who lives by wisdom. Someone who responds with intention. Someone who leaves a wake of calm in a world addicted to chaos. And maybe, just maybe, someone who inspires others to do the same. That's not just a practice, that's a legacy. Do not try to be better than others. Try to be better than who you were yesterday. Unknown. If you've made it this far, it means something inside you is shifting. Maybe it's subtle, a new awareness, a quiet resolve. Or maybe it's something deeper, a readiness to change how you meet the world. Either way, this is your turning point. Because Stoicism isn't about arriving, it's about returning, again and again, to what truly matters, to the discipline that builds character, to the calm that carries through conflict, to the values that guide you when everything else gets loud. And you don't need to announce it. You don't need to proclaim your transformation to the world. You just need to live it, quietly, consistently, deliberately, day by day, in how you hold space for someone else's emotion without losing your own, in how you forgive without forgetting your boundaries, in how you stay anchored when the current pulls hard. These are not minor acts. These are revolutions in motion within you. You are becoming someone who doesn't need the world to bend in your favor in order to stay at peace. Someone who moves through difficulty with grace, not because life is easier, but because your foundation is stronger. Someone who lives from the inside out. And over time, the change becomes evident. Not just in what you do, but in how you feel. You no longer fear the silence, you seek it. You no longer avoid the discomfort, you face it. You no longer shrink when things go wrong. You grow and rise. This is the quiet power you've been building all along. And if you ever doubt it, remember this: you're allowed to begin again, as many times as it takes. The world will keep testing you. Emotions will still flare. Life will throw its curveballs. But now you have tools. Now you have awareness. Now you have a choice. And every time you choose to respond with presence, with patience, with purpose, you're not just passing the test. You're becoming the person you were always meant to be. That's what this journey has been about. Not just learning Stoicism, but living it. Not just understanding calm, but becoming it. Not just admiring virtue, but embodying it every single day, quietly, faithfully, powerfully. And from here, your story continues. You become what you practice. Unknown. That's the final truth. Everything you've heard, felt, and reflected on in this journey leads to this one realization. Your life, your inner world, your character, your presence is shaped not by what you know, but by what you repeat. If you practice reactivity, you'll become reactive. If you practice silence, you'll become steady. If you practice alignment, even in small, quiet moments, that alignment becomes who you are. There's no magic in transformation. There's no shortcut. Just the simple, patient discipline of coming back again and again to the person you're choosing to be. It happens in the small hours when no one is watching. It happens when you let something go instead of clinging to it. When you speak gently even though you're hurt. When you choose clarity over blame. That's where the real work is. That's where the real growth lives. So let this be your invitation. Not to try harder, but to return more often. Return to your breath when you feel lost. Return to your journal when you need clarity. Return to your values when the noise gets loud. And return to yourself, your quiet strength, your calm awareness, your deepest truth in every choice you make. Because the Stoic path was never about being perfect. It was about walking forward with intention, no matter how many times you stumble. And now you have everything you need to keep walking. You've learned the art of the pause. You've discovered the power of reframing. You've practiced presence in a distracted world. You've remembered who you are and who you're becoming. So carry that with you. Let it shape your mornings. Let it soften your nights. Let it steady your hands when life gets shaky. This is not the end. It's a beginning, a continuation of your own becoming. And when the world rushes, you'll slow down. When the world shouts, you'll speak with care. When the world reacts, you'll respond. With depth, with wisdom, with a quiet power that can only come from within. That's your strength now. It always has been.